And seconded by Vice Mayor Cruz Baca. Any objections? Seeing none. Yes, closed session, seeing none. All right, thank you. At this point, I will now open up the Baldwin Park City Council meeting, the finance and the housing concurrently together. Prior to that, I just want to let everyone know, this is required by the Government Code, Section 54952.3. Members of the City Council are also members of the Board of Directors of the Housing Authority and Finance Authority, which are concurrently convening with the City Council this evening, and each council member is paid an additional stipend of $30 for attending the Housing Authority meeting and $50 for attending the Finance Authority meeting. So just want to note that. So at this point, I'm going to have Councilmember Ricardo Pacheco lead us in an invocation followed by the flag salute. I will ask all those that are able to do so to please stand. Thank you.
Heavenly Father, for this opportunity to have in this together in our democracy, for the wisdom of all of our leaders here, boards, our water board, leaders throughout the country. Protect those men and women, the firefighters, and the lives that watch over the terrorism.
Thank you. We're going to face the flag. Put your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with justice. Thank you. I want to say good evening to everyone, and also our deepest condolences goes out to to Paris, of course, the terrorism that occurred there and the senseless killing of innocent individuals. And one American, which is by the name of Noemi Gonzalez, resident of the city of Long Beach, attended, I believe, Cal State University Long Beach. Our condolences goes out to her and all those individuals that were affected. So we'll close on their behalf. So, council members wishing to close, and anyone else?
Yes, I'd like to take a moment. I'd like to take a moment of silence. Noemi Gonzalez was from El Monte.
Oh, El Monte.
She went to Cal State Long Beach. She was an only child.
Oh,
and it's very unfortunate, along with all the people that put fear in all of us, that we cannot go to malls or go anywhere. I speak for myself without thinking that at any moment there might be an attack, and we will forever live with that fear, just like with 9/11. So for that, could we please take a moment of silence to remember all those that either lost someone or were lost in Paris? Thank you, everyone.
All right, thank you very much.
And Mayor, on a happier note, I want to congratulate the Sierra Vista High School and the Baldwin Park High School cross-country team. They made it to the semifinals. Wow. However, the Baldwin Park High School will make it to the CIF finals.
Wow,
so
that's awesome.
The boys team. So I'm really excited about them, both Sierra Vista and Baldwin Park High School.
Hey.
You go, everybody.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks for that notation as well. It's very important.
May I say something
real
quickly? First of all, I just want to congratulate our Parks and Recs for that beautiful ceremony for Veterans Day. And I really want to ask Manny Carrillo, we did have a little incident where a paratrooper didn't quite make it. Is he okay?
Yes, I spoke to the team captain, Mr. Jay Fergoso, and the jumper is... he did break his pelvic area, his shoulder, punctured a lung, and cracked some ribs. But he is stable, and they anticipate him jumping again 6 to 12 months.
What a brave gentleman.
So he is excited to get back and jump.
We'll see him back home.
But, send again our thanks to the team and, of course, express how sorry we are that he had that little incident. Thank you so much, and thank your staff for what a great event that was.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much. Madam City Clerk, roll call, or City Treasurer. Maria
Good evening, everyone. Councilmember Monica Garcia.
She stepped away.
She was in the restroom. Councilmember Susan Ruby Hernandez.
Present.
Councilmember Ricardo Pacheco. Here. Mayor Pro Tem Cruz Baca.
Here.
Mayor Manuel Lozano.
Present. Thank you very much. All right. So at this point, we have several presentations that we have here. So the first one is the bike and from the San Gabriel Vector Control District. So I got stung with plenty of mosquitoes. So
Oh, yeah.
definitely got an issue here, and that's a priority there for a lot of the residents. So I want to welcome you gentlemen back. And Ken and Paul, thank you for being here. Oh yeah, Councilor Monica Garcia is back. All right, thank you.
Honorable Mayor and Council, thank you so much for inviting us to be here tonight. My name is Paul Novak. I'm the Executive Officer of the Local Agency Formation Commission for the County of Los Angeles, also known as LAFCO. With me to my left, your right, is Ken Fujioka, who's the General Manager of the San Gabriel Valley Mosquito and Vector Control District. So first question, what exactly is a LAFCO? The slide up here talks a little bit about what it is that we do. It's an acronym, again, for Local Agency Formation Commission. I would like to point out that LAFCOs are created by the state, so we are technically state agencies. So even though we are, I like to tell people we are the LAFCO for the County of Los Angeles and not of the County of Los Angeles. We are a separate and distinct agency. Excuse me. By way of background, and in all of Los Angeles County, Baldwin Park is one of only two cities which do not either A, belong or fall within the boundaries of a vector control district, or B, have their own vector control program. The San Gabriel Valley Mosquito and Vector Control District, which is on the slide, includes 23 cities and all county unincorporated areas in the San Gabriel Valley. As you can see from the map, again, your city is entirely surrounded by the boundaries of the district. Those areas that are within the boundaries of the district receive services from the district. For example, things like public education, mosquito abatement, vector control, etc. The reason that we are here tonight, myself with LAFCO and Ken with the district, is that we are appealing your city council for the support to annex into the district. This next slide examines some of the benefits and costs of annexation. In terms of the benefits, first and foremost, it would allow the district to implement vector control management techniques in the city, to respond to citizen complaints about mosquitoes and target some of their work. And finally, and something they do very well, it was conduct public education and outreach. In terms of the cost, there is a cost to come through the LAFCO process. The district has agreed to absorb all of those costs. Probably most importantly is the second bullet, which is that there is no cost directly to the city of Baldwin Park. It doesn't impact your budget in any way. Finally, on the third one, how is the district financed? It's through an assessment. And the way that works is for those properties that are within the district, there is an annual assessment on the property taxes. For those currently, the annual assessment for single-family dwellings is $11.86 a year. So that's less than $1 a month that residents would be paying. To give you an idea, to look at that in context, a couple ways of looking at it. And again, this is, don't shoot the messenger, this is from Realtor.com, but I looked it up a couple months ago and it said the average sale price of a home in Baldwin Park was $345,000. So the annual property tax, at least for a new home, would be roughly $3,450. So that $12 or just under $12 increase represents an increase of roughly 1/3 of 1%. And by way of comparison, if you look at other assessments that are typical within your city, depending on what county flood control area you're in, that assessment is anywhere from $16 to $43, $70 a year for community colleges, $141 for sewage disposal, and $544 for unified schools. This next slide is a brief description of the process to annex into a district, which takes approximately 9 to 12 months. The component that I would focus on kind of in the middle there, I think it's the fifth bullet, is the property tax exchange process. And what essentially that means is at some point, assuming a proposal were filed, we refer it over to the county CEO's office. They prepare what are known as property tax exchange resolutions. That would ultimately come before your city council for adoption. In terms of the impact, a couple points that we wanted to make about property tax. Number one, again, the district does not receive a share of the property taxes, so it would not impact the amount of property taxes coming to the city, your school districts, fire districts, things like that. The district activity would instead be financed by that assessment, and the assessment is not subject to a Proposition 218 vote. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Ken Fujioka, who's going to talk a little bit about some of the vector control issues in this area.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
The city of Baldwin Park and the San Gabriel Valley in general have several vectors and vector-borne diseases that we need to worry about. There's a genus of mosquitoes called Culex. There's several kinds of Culex, and they are the vectors of West Nile virus. The most recent problem that the San Gabriel Valley has and Baldwin Park residents experienced in force this past year are Aedes. They're vectors of two diseases, dengue and chikungunya. I don't know if you've heard of them, but they cause a debilitating arthritis. The disease is not here, but the vector is here. There have been cases of West Nile virus in the city of Baldwin Park. There are not many, but this is a small city, and I'm sure many of you know at least one person that has had West Nile virus, and it is a disease that impacts people's lives. It impacts families' lives as well. These are the two mosquitoes that I was talking about. The one on the right is currently the one that's causing your problems. The one on the left is a recent introduction to Los Angeles. It is spreading rapidly. We have not identified it in our district, but I'd be surprised if it wasn't there. They both behave the same way. They breed in very small sources of water, a bottle cap, a crumpled snack bag, leaves of plants, these kinds of things. They're very hard to control. They lay their eggs. The mosquitoes are gone for the winter. You won't receive very many bites, but the eggs are sitting there, and then when it warms up again in spring, you'll see the mosquitoes again. We've done some cursory trapping in the city, and those are points that we have confirmed collections of Aedes albopictus. And so you can see that if those are indications, the mosquito is widespread throughout your city. This is a map. It's about 2 months old. These are the numbers. These are the sites that we have found Aedes albopictus in, and you can see that Baldwin Park is pretty much surrounded by red dots. Subsequent to this, we found fairly heavy infestations in the city of West Covina, which is in the bottom right-hand corner, and so Baldwin Park is truly surrounded. This, again, is a couple months old. We put this slide together as of September 9th. I can tell you that in the month of September, we received 29 calls from the city of Baldwin Park. In October, we received 40. And so a lot of your residents called us, and unfortunately, we weren't able to help them with their problem because they don't pay an assessment to our district. So I think Paul mentioned this. The property tax exchange agreement is in paper only. Our district receives no revenue from property tax, so your collection of property tax will not be impacted at all. Are there any questions?
I have a question. When Mayor Lozano and myself met with you several months back, I forgot if you mentioned exactly what is the process. Let's just say that a resident, that we are within your vector control program, and a resident calls you. Does that mean that you come out right away to take care of the situation? How many times a year would you come out? Like this year, it seemed like the whole year we had mosquitoes until recently. I just stepped out of my backyard and I would be bitten like 10 times. Mm-hmm. So, and I know that everybody as well had the same problem. So, it was extremely bad this summer. So many complaints. I'm sure that all my fellow council members, and the mayor got the same complaints from residents and people letting us know that they were being eaten alive. How many times would you come out, or would you be, what is the process, in other words, for you to come and do the abatement?
The process for this particular mosquito is it will take a continuous presence by vector control, whoever that is. It will take a continuous effort by the residents. It is a community-wide effort that will succeed. It can't be us coming to your house once a week, putting out pesticide, because if the sources of water are not eliminated by the people who live there, the eggs will continue to hatch, the mosquitoes will continue to come out. If your neighbor doesn't cooperate, then the mosquitoes will fly into your property and you will be bitten. And so our presence takes care of the worst offenders. It educates the community as a whole, and we try to foster a community spirit so that you all benefit from controlling this mosquito, because it will change the lives of the San Gabriel Valley residents. It's already changing the lives of the foothill cities. Arcadia, Azusa, Duarte, Monrovia were in the same position that you were in, and so we spend a lot of time in those areas. And this winter, our goal will be to try to, like I said, foster a community spirit so that we can work on it together, because we have 10 full-time specialists. We have 315,000 parcels. There's no way we can continuously go to a property and apply pesticides. It's not sustainable.
So you would just come initially the first time, and then would you come back 6 months later? Would you come back a year later?
We come back as needed. It's a situational basis. If we have a person who is doing their due diligence and follows our recommendations on the first inspection, we would come back more often than someone who failed to comply with our recommendations. We would probably use stronger measures. We have an abatement process. We prefer to work with the residents and get them to buy into the program rather than use a heavy hand and force them. But we could use abatement procedures if we had to. That would be not so much to protect, so much to penalize them, but to protect their neighbors.
I have a question. Are you done, Mayor Pro Tem?
Well, yeah. Well, yes and no, because I still don't understand. Are you going to come out and do like either an education where you reach the different communities, or you go to the senior center or whatever it is and reach as much of our community as you possibly can to educate them? Is there a form, and I hate to use this because I don't like toxins, but is there a form of a pesticide that they will be able to use, or dishwater soap or whatever it is, for them to go out there and kill the initial mosquitoes that are flying around, and also do the water and all of that, get rid of all the water in plants or whatever that's staying behind, so that the eggs don't hatch and so forth, and now you've got the problem again. Will there be like I think there needs to be a lot of education so that our residents know how to take care of the problem, instead of just going out there and reaching a few people, because this is all over Baldwin Park. And I think everyone agrees with me that it's not just a certain area. I think it's everywhere in Baldwin Park.
Yeah, community, education is a major component of our program. The pesticides we use are for the most part, either bacteria that are specific for mosquitoes or hormones that work only on mosquitoes. The pesticides I think you're thinking about are ones that are applied to kill adults, and it would take a very special, very dire circumstances for us to get to that level. We don't like doing it, and we much prefer to get rid of the sources of water and use the pesticides that I mentioned previously.
Okay, thank you.
All right, go ahead, Susan.
Yeah, well, it's along the same lines. I'm still a little bit confused. You did say that community education is a big component. I still don't understand how you go about doing that. I kind of agree with Mayor Pro Tem. Is it that you send out letters to residents and advise them of some kind of a community forum that you have, or do you target sections? I'm still confused as to how you go about educating the community.
We have a number of things that we do. We speak to legislators. We speak to community organizations. You mentioned senior citizen centers. You mentioned community fairs. We have a presence at all of those. We have a very large presence on social media, Twitter, Facebook. We can target messages to cities or demographics as needed. We have educational material, hard copy, in several languages. We go wherever we're requested. We seek out opportunities to get the message out. That's. I don't know.
Thank you. Well, I have another comment. Well, I completely agree that there has to be the community buy-in. They have to be part of the solution. If we're going to go this route, I really want to make sure that we take part in it. Maybe have a section in the now where we educate the community, maybe a hotline, if you will, where we are always informing the residents. I agree with Mayor Pro Tem. If we are going to tackle this problem, it has to be consistent, not in case something comes up. So, again, this goes to our council. If we are going to be part of the vector control, then we need to have a section in the now where it's continuously educating the community, letting them know where they can call and who to go to. Thank you.
I have a question for you, actually a couple of questions. So I also want to understand more about your treatment plan and how that gets implemented. And I understand education is part of that, but what specifically, how do you go out and how do you treat, the problem?
So we have vector control specialists. They are certified by the state. They are trained. They have there is a continuing education program. They look for sources, first of all, that they haven't seen before. They inspect ones that they know about, the flood control channels, for example. They respond to requests for service. So let's take a residence, for example. If we get a request for service, they're being bitten by mosquitoes, the inspector will make an appointment. They will go into the backyards. We do not go into houses. We'll go into the backyard, make an inspection, look for sources. If there are sources that can't be removed, then we will apply a pesticide depending on what stage the specialist finds there. Then the inspector will look, if they can, into the neighborhood and see if there are any other places where mosquitoes could be developing, and again, remove sources if possible. Treat them if necessary.
Okay, so so it's basically in response to calls for service.
That's one part of it. The other part is for us actively seeking
control
gutter,
channels,
for example, or some source of water that is permanent.
And monitoring likely sources,
yes,
right, in the community. And then the education piece, right?
Yes.
And then the other question is related to Prop 218. I heard that Prop 218 isn't required. So what would be the process? And I guess when you're asking residents to, approve an assessment, or when you're selling an assessment, you want to be able to explain to them what service they're getting in return.
In terms of the Proposition 218 question, and my attorneys would probably tell me to say that be careful that you don't give legal advice. I can tell you what I know of the situation. The world in which LAFCO's work changed about 3 years ago because of a case called Sunset Beach versus Orange County LAFCO. In that particular case, there was an objection to an annexation and the fact that by being annexed into the city of Huntington Beach, the residents of that unincorporated community would now be paying these assessments. And there was a very strongly worded decision in that case, and the judge basically said, no, when an annexation occurs, Those assessments apply, and Proposition 218 votes are not required. That was, very candidly, one of the things that got La Cañada Flint Ridge to annex into the greater LA Vector Control District, because they were worried about having to go through. They weren't concerned about the outcome of the Prop 218, they were worried about the cost of it, because it's very expensive. A couple decades back, when Altadena annexed into the district, it involved a Proposition 218 vote with 45,000 residents, registered voters. It was very expensive. So since that Sunset Beach case happened, the annexations we've been processing do not require the 218 votes. That's true for LA LAFCO. That's true for all 58 LAFCOs in California. So it really did change the process in terms of what it is that we do.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think for us, I'd like to understand how we would proceed with getting our residents engaged on this issue. If if we would consider asking them to approve an assessment, or, if it would just be one decision from the city council. But even if that were the case, how would we engage residents?
I just want to. I'm glad, good questions that came up. So in essence, well, the process is we'd have to go through LAPCO to get admitted as part of the process for to become members of Vector. Am I correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And what's the process on that? I mean, how does that take place? Is that
the district would file a proposal with LAFCO to amend their sphere of influence and annex Baldwin Park into the Vector Control District. One of the first things that I do, I'm required by law within 5 days of getting a proposal to send it out to all of the taxing agencies involved. At that point, the county CEO handles what's called the property tax transfer. So they prepare a resolution for the involved city or districts in the area that your city council would have to adopt, that their Vector Control District would have to adopt, and then the county adopts theirs. That's usually the critical path item for us. When we have everything we need for a complete file, we put it on the commission's agenda. There's a 21-day notice, and then our commission acts, and that's essentially the process. I do want to mention one thing. It doesn't happen very often, but in annexations, there is what's called a protest process, but it is after LAFCO takes the discretionary action. So essentially, assume for the sake of argument that we went through this whole process, and 6 months or 9 months down the road, our commission approved it. There's a period of at least 30 days and a maximum of 60 days wherein any registered voter or any landowner can file a written protest with LAFCO. That can essentially overturn LAFCO's decision. It's similar to some degree to the way that cities and districts raise water rates or sanitation rates. It's not a vote, it's essentially a protest process. So it doesn't happen terribly often, but that vehicle does exist out there.
Okay. And then also, thank you for that. And Ken, also, so we're looking at what, $11 per household, or what?
$11.86.
Excuse me?
$11.86 for fiscal year 2016.
Okay. And I guess my concern goes back to what Councilmember Monica Garcia said, and I think all of us is in other words, how do we engage the general public? And of course, I prefer somehow send it out to them and maybe let them know or allow them to decide, even though 218 it's not applicable. And so in essence, the council itself could take it upon themselves to just vote on it. Am I correct in that? Is that the way, that's the process? And I don't think I feel too comfortable with that. I mean, even though, so $11, so what are we talking about monthly then?
$1 something.
A buck something, right? So all the way through. I mean, we have seniors that are on fixed income, and even a quarter or 50 cents is a big difference in them because they plan everything out. So I think what we need to do is maybe bring this back to ourselves where we discuss it to see what we want to do. I, again, prefer giving it to the residents and so we can inform them and allow them to decide the actual charges in itself. I mean, that's what I'm saying at this point, hypothetically speaking. So,
Mayor, may I
yes,
make a comment
yes.
to that? See, the thing is that we've been here before.
I know.
They had presented once before.
I know.
And I think that I agree with Councilmember Garcia and the mayor that we need to be proactive. Last time when we had a presentation, residents heard taxes, and that's when we started getting the phone calls that we're raising taxes. And so for me, I rather do exactly what he's saying. We need to be proactive and engage the community because they're going to start hearing taxes, and we want to make sure that we're not imposing this without their knowledge. So I'm with the mayor. But I also want to make another point, and I know that we have members of the water district here. Unfortunately, because we are going through the drought, what's happening is a lot of people trying to conserve water. What they're doing is they're either getting, cans and keeping their water in different containers. And I think that's what's, making this problem a little bit bigger. So I want to partner with the water district, and I know that we're sending out all this information about conserving water and using less water, but maybe you guys can help us out and maybe put some kind of warning sign, if you will, if you cautious, if you leave water out in containers, this is what the potential is, because what's happening is our residents, and I see it all over the city, they're keeping these containers all over the place just trying to capture that water. So we have these two problems at the same time, and we're not going to get any water anytime soon, so it's going to continue throughout the summer. And I don't know if we could sit down with the water district and see if we can figure out a plan where we're informing the residents so they're not trying to conserve and then creating this problem and making it a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor.
And I just want to really quickly, because we got other guests coming up, is maybe looking town hall meetings or we got election coming up next year, the primary, maybe place it on the ballot for the residents. It may not be that costly. Allow the residents to decide at the ballot, and I think that's probably going to be the best thing, and I'm going to push for that. This way, we're not caught in between. And again, it's not much, but it is for our seniors and those that are in fixed income. So I think that's what we're going to do. Despite the fact that we've been through this with you guys, and I'm very sorry, but that's going to be the decision that I will personally push for. And of course, there's 4 different opinions on this, but I think that we'll bring it up at a later time and discuss it and look at that election coming up next year and put it on there. Let them decide.
Mayor, I'd like to I'd like another briefing on the Prop 218, just to remind myself what that entailed, what was the cost. I know it's not required, but I just I agree with the mayor. I don't know if I like the idea of just kind of imposing another tax on residents without them really being engaged and having a say in that decision. So if we can get a briefing, of what that Prop 218 process looks like, and that would be great.
All righty. Okay. First of all, I guess thank you very much. First of all, Ken. And all right. So at this point, we have actually 2 more presentations. I'm going to go ahead and bring up the Kaiser before we go on to the next one. So the presentation by Lou Ortega, Pharmacy Director, and Reina Del Aro, Public Affairs Director of Kaiser Permanente, National Drug Take Back Day. So I want to thank you very much for being here. And also want to recognize Kaiser because they're an excellent partner in many aspects throughout the city, educating our community and providing numerous services at large. So thank you, Reina, for being here as well, and thank all the Kaiser team for the excellent job they've done.
Thank you for having me today, Honorable Mayor and City Council. My name is Lou Ortega. I'm the Outpatient Pharmacy Director for Kaiser Permanente. I direct all the pharmacies in the San Gabriel Valley. I'm really glad that I had a chance. Let me stop this thing. How do you stop it? Okay. I was reading an article the other day, and the article is stating that 44 people a day die of opioid misuse. 7,000 people are hospitalized on a daily basis throughout the United States. So pharmacists and health professionals, we have we have to be very concerned with the drugs that we dispense. So, here in Baldwin Park, we're very happy that we partner with your police department. And in years past, we've also partnered with West Covina as well. This year, we were able to capture 800 pounds of medications that had either ended up in the dump or in other people's hands or be used illicitly. And of course, as you know, some of these drugs can cause major issues with some people, even if they're being used with good intent. So I'm very happy that we were able to have these community benefits. For the main reason is that, I think that our main reason is public safety. We really want to make sure that the public is safe and that they are not subject to the pain and I guess the stress and anxiety that these drugs can bring individual people and their families. Last year's event, we collected 560 pounds of medication, and this year we collected over 800 pounds of medication from individuals. Wow. It's also interesting to note that the general public really trusts the police departments. So when we have these events, the public comes out in droves, and when they see the police cars and they see the officers there, they're more likely to donate their medications willingly and gladly. Matter of fact, we even had some citizens of the city who refused to give bags to anybody else but a badged policeman. So they know, I think the general public is very informed now, and they know what can happen with these types of drugs, and they don't like taking them to city yards or anywhere else. They like putting them in the hands of licensed police officers. But with that, at Baldwin Park, we have about 30 employees who show up on Saturday once a year, and they donate their time to make this happen. And I think it's one of the most important community benefits that we do in the year just for public safety alone. And with that, I'd like to continue to do this, and we would like to take on this responsibility just for public safety in the city and in the valley of the San Gabriel Valley. With that, any other questions? I'm sorry if I didn't.
No, I want to just say thank you very much for the information you provided. This is very important, a key element for us to be able to make certain that everyone's safe and sound, obviously, with the prescriptions and, as you stated today, the trust that they have in law enforcement as well. So that means a lot. I want to thank you. Anyone have any questions? All right. Thank you very much.
I just want to thank Kaiser for all the great things. Last Friday, I attended a beautiful ceremony for some of the ladies from the shelter. And thank you so very much, Reina, and everyone at Kaiser for all that you do for our community. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. We appreciate it too.
I like the Starbucks at Kaiser as well. Thank you. Thrive. All righty. Oh yeah, the exercise, the apparatus, and all the equipment there. Yeah, thank you very much. All righty. Okay, so at this point, very important area that we have here, which is the El Nino presentation by Stephen Jones, the Los Angeles County Public Works on the anticipated effects of El Nino. This is very important. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
My glasses here. Hello, and thank you for inviting me tonight to talk about the subject.
Thank you.
My name is Steve Sheridan. I'm with the Los Angeles County Department of Public Works. I'm with our department's flood maintenance division, and I see over the east area. So my maintenance area basically goes from the 5 freeway to the west to the San Bernardino County and everything north of the 605 up into the foothills. So I'll be providing a brief overview of my department's efforts for pre-storm and preparedness. So the county's flood control system was designed and built to minimize impacts from storm events to help protect lives and property. We have, the flood control district is fairly large. We have about 480 miles of open channel, 14 dams, about 3,000 miles of open channel. We got about 83,000 catch basins, 27 spreading grounds, 172 debris basins, and a number of other flood control facilities. But I don't want to overlook the important role that our road component plays. That consists of about 4,000 miles of roadway that needs to be maintained on an annual basis. But we maintain these systems throughout the year. This isn't something that we do prior to any storm season. So we're constantly preparing for storms. We're constantly keeping our facilities well maintained and well prepared for any event that might come our way. So here's just a simple picture of one of my guys with a Vector truck getting ready to pump out a catch basin. This one was up in Glendora area. And as I mentioned, we have about 83,000 catch basins that we maintain. About 370 of those are within your city. And I can't emphasize enough how important just simple catch basins are for city drainage. You may recall a recent incident, the thunderstorms that happened recently mostly in El Monte. Temple City, where they had a microburst storm. And what happened was it was very concentrated. A lot of rain came down in a very short duration, and it kind of flooded a community in a sense. But what happened was there was so much rain, and you see the water get into the gutters. And what happened was it happened to be trash day, so it ended up knocking over one of the residents' trash cans, and the trash can floated down, and it blocked the face of one of these catch basins. And it pretty much, it was at a cul-de-sac, so it's kind of what we call a sump. So the water rose very quickly. So someone made a phone call, and we happened to have someone in the immediate area. So one of my guys was able to get out there. By the time he got out there, the water was probably 3 or 4 feet high. And it was fortunate that he got there when he did. And he was able to just kind of walk over and lift this large trash can out of the gutter that was blocking the flow. And once that happened, all the water went into the catch basin and into our channels and went on its way. But it just goes to show that it doesn't take much. Something small like that can create a big problem. So we own 27, and we own and operate 27 spreading grounds. And stormwater makes up about 1/3 of the region's water supply. And it's captured by diverting stormwater flows into facilities like this, such as spreading grounds, where it percolates back into the groundwater basins. And on average, my department captures and percolates about 64 billion gallons of water every year. And that's about enough water to take care of about 1.5 residents for 1 year. So that's a tremendous amount of water.
How many residents?
1.5 million, 64 billion gallons. So talking about El Nino. So El Nino is not a single event. It's a weather pattern caused by the rise in the ocean temperature across the equatorial Pacific. El Nino conditions occur every 2 to 7 years. They are classified as weak, mild, strong. The one for this this current storm season is considered strong, which simply means that there is a higher chance of increased rainfall. But there's no guarantee with the amount of rain that we may get. So now that we've prepared our systems, how do we prepare for rain events? We work closely with the National Weather Service to understand the intensity and durations of incoming storm events. And before and during storms, we monitor a series of water meters that we have throughout the county that tells us the rainfall amounts in different areas of the county, and as well as the depth of water that runs through the channels in our reservoirs. Also, during storms, we have crews that go out and perform what we call storm patrols, where they typically, they drive around and they monitor and inspect locations that typically are known to be suspect with flooding and mud flows. And we also place heavy equipment in strategic locations in preparation for storms so we can respond to emergencies if any should happen. So the question is, what should you do also, and the residents also? We suggest, try and keep important numbers and contact numbers readily available. Prepare emergency kits, keeping one at your house, one in your car. We ask that you monitor, local forecasts and advisories. The National Weather Service has a great advisory that you can sign up at their website. Also, it's important to anticipate stuff like water, mud, and debris on the streets. You'll probably encounter flooded intersections, and obviously the driving conditions will be miserable in that sense. You might encounter some downed trees, broken limbs on the streets, as well as, possibly power and traffic signal outages. So it's just a matter of staying alert when you're out and about. So resources. The county has prepared a comprehensive list of material and resources, to assist the public in preparing for the storm season, as well as seeking assistance if necessary. I've listed a number of resources here that can be used before, during, and after a storm season or a storm event. And I'd just like to point out a couple key ones for the most part is the second bullet one, the one that has lacounty.gov/El Nino is a great website for information. I'd also like to point out that we have a 24-hour dispatch number, 1-800-675-HELP, which I encourage anybody to use if they ever come across an incident or such a flooded intersection or down power lines. And of course, we have a phone app. There's a phone app for everything. So we have one also called The Works that anyone can acquire through the App Store or Google Play. And all of this information, I got one here, what I do with it, is contained in these brochures that I brought. And I shall leave these, I guess I'll leave them in the back table there. But a lot of information that's up here and even more is contained in this brochure. So, I mean, it's a lot of information in a convenient small package here. So in summary, my department's prepared. The heightened state of alert caused by El Nino. You'll see additional patrols from my crews out patrolling during the storms. But we also rely on the public to report flooding and other incidences such as mud or flooded intersections. And the best way to do that would be able to use that dispatch number that I showed before, which is also contained in this brochure. But it is very important for the public's assistance, which is critical to the health and safety of everyone when we come to storm season. So, we ask that if you see something, please report it. So with that concludes my presentation, and I'll take any questions that you may have.
Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, no, go ahead. That's fine.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Steve, I had some questions. Well, first of all, I'm curious, are you from New York?
Boston.
Boston. Very nice. Okay.
How'd you notice? No.
So, related to what the city can do to prepare, do you have any, specific recommendations that we can start to consider?
Well, I don't know if the city has. I'm sure they have on their website. Maybe a location on their website where they can, they have their own information, and they can also help post this information also to help, disseminate the information for those who may not be attending. But we have a lot of information in this package, and I would just ask that you just kind of duplicate it as best as you can and get it into as many people's hands as possible.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think if we can include that information in our newsletter, Manny? Yeah, if we can include that in our newsletter and get that out at the next edition, that would be great.
Yeah, if you want to contact, I'll leave my card, and we can provide, besides the information contained in here, and if anyone was to go do a search on any of these locations or websites, there's a tremendous amount of information and resources contained in here, but we can also help, refine what you want to put in that newsletter.
I think it should also be included with Daniel Rodriguez's emergency preparedness, so that way we could put it on the website if there's any numbers, or the web address to be able to, if anybody has any problems with a fallen tree or whatever it is. I know that we have our own services here in Baldwin Park, but it would, in case people don't know, that would also be good to have that as well.
Are there any infrastructure, items that we should be paying close attention to?
Within your city, I would say no. We have, your city, I mentioned miles and miles of channels that we have, and your city only has about 6 miles of open channel. And you have, like I mentioned, you got about 370 catch basins. And I think you only have about 18 miles of storm drain that we maintain. So small in comparison to what we have. And, I have nothing to say that any of those facilities are deficient in any manner. Everything, we got pretty much everything prepared, waiting for El Nino to arrive.
If he arrives.
If it arrives.
Thank you.
And kind of dry. We're kind of hoping we see some rain, controlled. But
according to Caltech, they're pretty much it's on target. So let's see what
that's what they say, and we're prepared.
Let's see what happens.
I have one more thing just for the residents, which I know that you I don't think you touched on it, but I'm sure you have it on your website. I really believe that we should clean our gutters and make sure that the gutters are clean, because that will also flood your house.
Good point. Yeah, there are things residents can do on their own. I mean, obviously I focused on the systems and facilities that I'm responsible for, but simple things like that can greatly decrease the chance of damage to their homes.
Yes, thank you.
Right. Shall I leave these brochures at the back table?
Do you have enough for us?
I
Everyone
was
have?
provided whatever the city requested here. It's in
Yeah, can we grab
three,
some-
three languages.
We get those, yeah.
And
We want to definitely include them in our city newsletter.
All right, thank
Now,
you very
let me
much.
ask a real quick question before we leave. You have areas like, I'm from Brownsville, Texas, and I've been there when I've seen these just constant raining, and then those drains just fill up and everything gets flooded. Are there a possibility that could happen in this region as well? Of course, if it's constant rain for, maybe 2 hours?
Being from Boston, I'm pretty used to some severe weather. So out here, it's kind of different in a sense. But our facilities are fantastic. We have a number of them. So I've been kind of asked that question. And, the only real true issue for me would be if we had a series of intense rains that lasted multiple days after multiple days after multiple days. At some point, it just overtaxes the system. And there's only so much our system can handle. So at that point, that's when we would have problems. But those chances of that happening are quite remote.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Sir,
Very
thank you very
educational.
much.
Thank you, sir.
Mayor, if I
Yes,
just
ask staff a Councilman question, Pacheco?
Our Public Works Director, can you kind of tell us what about street flooding? I know that sometimes when it rains real strong, areas on north part of the town seem to be a little more flooded. Have we done things to kind of alleviate some of the street flooding that we have?
We've ensured that our catch basins, that are city-owned catch basins, have been cleaned in preparation for that. We also are stockpiling sandbags at the city yard for residents who may be experiencing flooding. They will have the opportunity to pick up sandbags to protect their homes if they are experiencing flooding on their properties.
All right, thank you very much. All right, so at this point, no further presentations. I'll open up the public communication. Anyone wishing to speak? Yeah, approximately 3 minutes. Thank you. Good evening. Before I forget, coming up, this is Valley County Water Board Director Margarita Vargas. And also we have the Upper San Gabriel, Mike Tui. Are you the president, vice president? You're the president. Thank you very much, Mr. Mike Tui, former mayor of the city of West Covina. And if you don't know him, you don't know California. Thanks, Mike.
You don't know water.
Yeah, water, yes.
I think I already told you this, but I'm going to tell you again. In the agenda, we have the agenda for the finance authority. We have the agenda for the housing authority. But in those agendas, you have public communication. And it says 3 minutes, whatever, and then the other one too. But I know you don't let people speak in those meetings because those meetings are less than a minute. And I think, you're getting paid $70 for those 2 meetings. And I think, for $70 a minute is too much. So I think you should review the agendas or let people speak at least so the meeting be a little longer. Because I think, to me, it doesn't look good. Because you're like lying in the agenda, because you're saying the people can speak 3 minutes and nobody can speak. Because I try and you didn't let me, so I know that. So I don't know who's the lawyer maybe can review this, see if we in compliance with the law. Because remember Bell, they were in trouble because they were charging a lot of money for the meetings. So just so we can start in December, we can start good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, at this point, moving on with public communication. Anyone else wishing to speak?
Mayor Lozano and council members, my name is Elizabeth Valdivia Tellez. I've been a member of Baldwin Park for about 50 years or so. I wouldn't want to mention that. But I have a large problem in my area, and I was wondering if there's public records that show times and dates of police patrol in my area. Is there
You know what? What I'll do after, once you finish, I'm going to refer you to one of the captains in the back, and they could get that data for you.
So it is public knowledge?
Oh, everything's public access,
Wonderful.
Yes.
Okay.
Alrighty.
Anybody?
You want to go ahead? Yeah, no, right back there. That'll help you, Mr. Brown. All right. Thank you.
That's what I needed.
Stay out of the family.
I will.
All right. Thank you.
Good evening.
Yes, good evening, sir.
Mr. Council. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Hao Lee, and I'm living at 4727 Jerry Avenue. This letter is to bring to your attention the Asian tiger mosquito problem that has recently surfaced in Baldwin Park. I have some copy in here, so I will hand over.
Sure.
For 26 years, I live in Baldwin Park, and I have never experienced anything like this that took place this summer. For years, my family have been able to enjoy our backyard wearing shorts, tank tops, and bathing suits without ever worrying about the mosquito. We are used to enjoy sitting outside with our dog, reading book, having a drink. But not anymore. Now every trip out to our yard is like walking onto a battlefield. We have to wear long sleeve, gloves, masks, and etc. And it took a long time to get ready to the point it has become unbearable. Moreover, this infestation had become serious to the point to deter family members from visiting my wife and I. My grandchildren, who used to come every week, have stopped because each visit has spurred numerous bites all over their body, leading to the fever and sore for weeks. Recently, I learned that Baldwin Park stopped being a part of the San Gabriel Valley vector and the mosquito control, a company who worked to control the mosquito population. Upon learning this, I visited the city hall and found out that our city lacked the funding to enter this program. Wow, I understand this matter doesn't just pertain to our city. It had become an epidemic for the entire Los Angeles County and neighboring county as well. I believe it needs to be addressed, as mosquitoes carry many diseases. For the sake of our loved one, I firmly believe we need to take action. So today, I write this open letter to urge the mayor, the city council, and my fellow citizens Baldwin Park to take action to do something about it. I know, as the homeowner, we already pay plenty for property tax, but I believe we should pay a bit more to alleviate this growing problem. I urge you all to pay a bit more to adopt a resolution to destroy the San Gabriel Valley vector for the sake of our family, safety, or for our kids' ability to enjoy our outdoor activity. Please let us find a way to fight this ad hoc problem and make Baldwin Park a better place for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Mayor,
That'll
can
be
I
well
make
noted.
a comment real quickly?
Yes.
And only because, we were asking a lot of questions from the gentleman that made the presentation, and I don't think we were clear because the council and all of us have had many, many discussions. We're all eager to take care of this problem. We're all very concerned, and we're all being affected by it. However, we want to make sure that we do it correctly and that we really take into consideration the residents because, when we hear $11.86, it's really not much. However, sometimes, the message gets out there as a rumor, and then people start thinking that there's bigger assessments. And so we really just want to tackle this issue and make sure that everyone knows exactly what they're being charged and why. And so I think it's better that we take it, one step at a time, make sure that everything's done well. But again, I just want to make sure, because we all ask so many aggressive questions, we want to make sure everyone knows that all of us are very interested in taking care of the problem. We're with you, and we will resolve it as soon as we can. Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, and thank you very much for taking the opportunity to bring that, because it is definitely a concern. I was bit, plenty of times. And I know a lot of residents throughout Baldwin Park. There was one resident that was up in the north section of Baldwin Park in the backyard. It's incredible how many were just actively there. So we're going to follow up with that as well. All right, thank you very much.
And Mayor, I
yes.
would like to add that we are, the big concern is that we do want to educate the residents so that way you know exactly what the process will be. Look out either in the Now, which is the newspaper or the magazine that comes out, or meetings that we might have within the community so that you can voice your opinion and we can hear what's happening in your residences. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And we'll place it on the internet as well, so that this way individuals can go on there as well. All right, so at this point, anyone else wishing to speak? Okay, if not, I'll go ahead and declare the public communication closed. At this point, we'll go over to consent calendar. We have items 1 through 7. Council members wishing to pull any item?
6.
Number 6. All right, at this point, unless anyone else does not have, I'll go ahead and move for consent calendars items 1 through 7. Thank you, with the exception of 6. Second, any objections? See none, so move. At this point, we'll go over to the public hearing, which is the request for consideration of an environmental impact report.
Mayor, I pulled item number 6.
Oh, that's right. Sorry about that. Item number 6 by Councilor Susan Rubio, Memorandum of Understanding for the 2016 Greater Los Angeles Homeless Count Opt-in Program. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to know, is there anyone here representing the organization? Or Manny, are you going to answer the question?
Yes, I could answer the question that you may have.
Okay, thank you. I'm just really just want to be informed. I know that there's a lot of requirements for the city once we sign this memorandum of understanding in terms of the responsibilities. I mean, it's huge. It's a big undertaking.
Yes.
So I just wanted to find out, if we do enter into this MOU, what are the benefits in terms of, I read a section where it says that we can leverage resources. Who can explain what those resources are and how we're going to tackle some of the issues that we're going to face once we know the numbers of, once we do the research? Who's going to give us that information?
The Homeless Coalition would provide us that information, but I think for that detailed information, it might be best just to table this matter, and we could bring it back for the next council meeting, and we could have a representative here to elaborate a little bit more.
Thank you, Mayor, because if you read the Memorandum of Understanding, there's a lot of work to be done, just a lot of resources, a lot of personnel time, a lot of money. So, again, I just want to make sure that we know what we're entering into. Clearly, we're all interested in taking care of the issue and helping the homeless, but I really want someone that can give us some information. What resources can we leverage? And, is there resources we can send, our homeless population to? So, yeah, if you can get someone to give us the information. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you
Mayor.
very much. At this
And
point,
with
we're gonna
that,
go
I'll
and
make
poll.
the motion, yes.
The
Thank you.
the motion
To table it.
To table this for a future meeting. I'll second. Any objections? See none, so move. All right, we'll go back to number 8, the request for consideration of an environmental impact report and a specific plan, including an urban design framework, circulation and parking, zoning and development standards, and design standards and guidelines within the area generally defined as the city's downtown area location, the Central Business District area, generally bound by La Rica Avenue and West Clark Street to the North Park and right lot to East and Downing Avenue to the south, including the Metrolink rail station. Applicant, City of Baldwin Park, case number SP 15-01. So at this point, the Honorable and the Distinguished Amy Harbin.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor, council members, members of the audience. After about a year's worth of work, research, community outreach, as the mayor said, the item before you is to approve an environmental impact report and a transit-oriented development specific plan for the city's downtown area. The creation of this plan and the environmental impact report is primarily funded by a grant we see from Metro in the amount of about $289,000. At this point, it's my pleasure to introduce Larry Morrison and Jean Ward with the Arroyo Group. They were the primary consultants working on this project, and they're going to give the presentation tonight on this.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Larry Morrison, the founding principal of the Arroyo Group. I'd like to thank you for the inputs that you made in our study sessions. Also like to thank the community for the great input at the workshops, and also to Amy and Mark for the fine staff leadership that they provided. And I'd like to now introduce my fellow principal of the Arroyo Group, Jean Ward, who will take you through the project. And also at this time, I'd like to introduce Mike Bates, principal with the Mobility Group, our transportation team member, and Lloyd Zola of the Metis Environmental Group, who's be talking to you about the EIR. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Lozano and members of the council. So I'm going to walk you through what's hopefully a fairly brief presentation tonight, but we do want to cover the specific plan for you. We're going to talk about the background and purpose, the specific plan area benefits, the process we went through, and then Mike and I will walk you through the chapters of the specific plan, and then Lloyd will talk to you just very briefly about the CEQA process. As Amy mentioned, you were awarded a Metro TOD planning grant to do this, mainly to increase transit-oriented development around the Metrolink station, improve circulation, and enhance pedestrian amenities, all in an effort to help revitalize the downtown. The boundaries of the specific plan generally focus around what you now consider your heart of downtown, your civic center area, the historic core, with Clark Street to the north, La Rica to the west. It's just east of the Park and Ride station to the east, and then just south of the Metrolink station to the south. The benefits of having a specific plan for your downtown. When it's a city-initiated specific plan as opposed to a developer-initiated specific plan, it's really the city's way of demonstrating a clear vision for what the city and the community want to see when development applications come in. So it's really an economic development tool to help facilitate development and tell applicants what you want to see. It is a regulatory document, so it helps ensure long-term change. You can think of part of the document as like a little mini localized zoning code. And also it includes a program EIR. So that helps provide environmental clearance for specified levels of development intensity and thereby streamlining the CEQA process for any future applicant that will come in with a development application in the specific plan area. We have had about a year and a half process where we've done baseline studies, existing conditions reviews. We've identified opportunities and opportunity sites. We had 3 community workshops at key stages of the process. We had study sessions with both you, the City Council, as well as the Planning Commission. And then we prepared an administrative review draft that staff reviewed, and now we're in the phase of the you reviewing the public review draft and then a final plan and the hearings. So I think what we're going to do here is I'm going to walk you through chapter by chapter as to what the specific plan includes, because the specific plan has a regulatory part for private development, it has recommendations for public realm improvements, and then it has a brief section on implementation strategies for how to move forward. So we're going to show you what is located in each chapter so you know where to go to find the items that are important to you. Chapter 1 just sets forth the context, the regional setting, and the project area, which we've already discussed. It discusses recent planning efforts and development activity, including and discusses the city's, it's been a long-term desire to capitalize on the location of the transit center in your downtown in your efforts towards revitalization. Chapter 1 also talks about the specific plan administration and the organization of the document. Chapter 2 is the planning and design process for the project, and it discusses issues and opportunities related to downtown identity, the appearance and function of Ramona Boulevard, as well as underutilized opportunity sites that would be catalytic for spurring revitalization in the downtown. And these were all discussed in detail in our community workshops. Chapter 2 also describes the community participation process that I already talked about, as well as the specific plan principles, which are centered around the concept of TOD. Chapter 3 is the design concept, and this contains what we call the urban design framework, which describes really the elements of the public realm and the private realm and how those work together to create an identifiable and unique downtown. It's really all these features that work together that make Baldwin Park a destination. Some of the key elements of the framework we talk about in more detail in this chapter, and these include the opportunity for a large civic open space area right across here from City Hall on city-owned property. This was something that was discussed very early on with the public in our process. And as you are aware, this then took on a life of its own with your involvement, and this is provided by the La Cañada Design Group. But we're happy to see that the idea of more civic open space in the downtown is coming to fruition in the downtown with a link to City Hall, a link out to Ramona Boulevard. This chapter also talks about all the opportunities related to Ramona Boulevard. As you know, you have an extremely wide right-of-way. There's a lot of underutilized pavement out there. So this is one of the illustrations in our plan that describes how you can use some of that underutilized right-of-way and turn it into wider sidewalks, where you can provide more pedestrian amenities, including street furniture, outdoor dining, improved landscaping, there's bike lanes, and how to make Ramona Boulevard, which really bisects the downtown, into a more multimodal place and a place to be. This chapter also talks about some design recommendations and improvements for the intersection of Ramona Boulevard and Baldwin Park Boulevard, which really acts as a gateway into the downtown. So it provides recommendations about accent paving and widened crosswalks, as well as ideas for gateway features, including enhanced landscaping and some monument signage. This chapter also puts forth a street tree palette for the downtown, as well as some design criteria for street furniture in the downtown. Chapter 4 is zoning and development standards, and this is the regulatory part of the plan, the part that applies to private development. It establishes zones, use regulations, and standards for new development. It essentially creates one new mixed-use zone, which supports your 2012 zoning code update by maintaining approximately a third of the downtown in that mixed-use zoning. But then it also refers back to the code for other zones with specific modifications that we've made to tailor it to the downtown. So as you can see, the area that's in the mid-toned pink is the mixed-use one zone. And what this does is it really concentrates density and uses that are appropriate for transit-oriented development in the area near the Metrolink station. This chapter also tailors development standards specifically to a downtown environment. For example, it requires that pedestrian-oriented retail frontage be provided along Ramona and Main to increase pedestrian activity in downtown. I don't expect you to be able to read this table, but I want you to know that this is the part of the plan where you go to if you want to see the permitted or conditionally permitted use list of what's permitted in the zones in downtown, as well as development standards. And then there's also diagrams and graphics to help support the development standards for things such as related to building setbacks, stepping back building height adjacent to residential neighborhoods, as well as there are standards in there for outdoor dining. This chapter also just provides some photo examples of the type of mixed-use development you might see under the development standards and uses allowed in the mixed-use zone in downtown. It doesn't prescribe that things go up to 3 to 4 stories, but they are allowed to expand up to that. And these are just examples of other mixed-use developments. Most of these are around transit stations and other Southern California communities. Chapter 5 is design standards and guidelines. Community acceptance is really based on the quality of the projects that are coming in. So if that's lacking, it sets the tone for how future projects are received by residents in the community. So quality development is mandatory. So what this chapter does is it uses a combination of photo examples and computer renderings to illustrate design guidelines, such as setting and orientation of buildings on retail streets to activate the street frontage, plazas, courtyards, outdoor amenities for public spaces within projects, walkways and connections in commercial and residential projects. There's architectural guidelines such as building form, articulation, roof form, the elements of retail buildings and facades, as well as guidelines for sustainable building features and landscaping. One part of this chapter is we have a couple of annotated massing models. These are conceptual only. They just show one way a couple of specifics of the larger sites in downtown could be developed under the development standards and the design guidelines in the specific plan. It's not intended to illustrate exact layout or replacement of any specific building, but it's a guide so that the city planners and an applicant might know how they could apply some of the development standards. This is the site on Clark and Main Avenue showing how a horizontal mixed-use project may come in. And this is a vertical mixed-use project on Downing and Central Avenue. And again, there's many ways those sites could develop, but this is just intended to be a helpful guide. This chapter also has a rendering here where we've showed just by applying some of the guidelines and doing facade upgrades. These are buildings along Main Street that with additional awnings, improved signage, improved window transparency, just how going in and giving things a facelift per the plan could help improve the appearance of downtown. And with that, I'll hand it over to Mike for a bit to talk about circulation and parking.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Thank you. I'll take you through just a brief spin of circulation and parking chapter. As I don't have to tell you all, the city's taken a leading role in multimodal and complete streets. You've adopted resolutions, doing a road diet scheme on Main Avenue north of the downtown. So the plan really is done within that spirit and extends that work that you've already done as a city. So in terms of mobility goals for the downtown, it's very much focused on complete streets, provide access and circulation for everybody, for all modes, not just for traffic, but to make it easy to get around as a pedestrian, as a bicyclist, and to calm traffic as much as possible. And it's really built around the idea of two key boulevards in the city, Ramona, which we've talked about, and we'll talk a little more, as a key pedestrian street that you can stroll down, and Main Avenue in the north-south direction. Intersection improvements, crosswalks, new mid-block crosswalks to make it easier to get across Ramona and access the Metrolink station here. The idea of a off-street network of alleys that could be used for other pedestrian circulation, and a whole host of improvements for pedestrian circulation. This just illustrates the idea on Ramona Boulevard. As you know today, it's a 4-lane street, has quite narrow bike lanes, and it has these very, very large areas on the side for double rows of parking and a relatively narrow sidewalk. The plan articulates how this might look in the future with a wider bike lane, which makes it easier for bicyclists, and by replacing one row of this parking with a much wider sidewalk opportunity that makes it much easier for pedestrians, opportunities for outdoor dining to spill out of restaurants, all without really changing the roadway structure and maintaining the same traffic lanes. This is the example Gene showed that shows how the sidewalk environment can really be improved. And these are just examples of the kind of off-street alley-type network that could be created as alternate routes for pedestrians as well. The specific plan does explore opportunities for Main Avenue and the possibility of a road diet and extending the one that you're doing north of downtown. Possibility of what we call parklets, which are an increasingly popular way of extending the sidewalk a little where it's relatively narrow, taking a parking space, protecting it, and making it really open space that connects to the sidewalk. We're seeing more and more of these in cities around the country. There are some ideas in the specific plan to do a little realigning of streets in the central area. This is the Civic Center here where we are. This is Ramona, and the idea of realigning Sterling Way here to basically clean up this offset intersection, and the idea of vacating at least part of Main Avenue here so that this whole area could become a much higher and better use, and maybe a civic plaza opposite City Hall here. Also to enhance bicycle facilities. Really the goal is to Widen bike lanes where we can. A lot of your streets don't have width to add bike lanes and still retain on-street parking. On-street parking is very important in a downtown for convenience for patrons and customers. But the plan articulates a network of bike facilities, some bike lanes, some bike routes that identify that they're routes for bikes that not only get you around downtown but also connect out well into the neighborhoods so that you can bike more easily into downtown. And of course, supporting transit. That is a central focus of the plan. It's around the Metrolink station, maintain all the transit service that occurs today. And there's also a section on parking in Chapter 6, which really is focused around what we call a Park Once strategy and the idea of because you're creating this walkable downtown, you park your car once and then walk to multiple destinations around downtown rather than park, visit, drive, park, drive, park. So a lot of these pedestrian amenities are designed to enable you to park once, and the provisions in the plan that are outlined at the end of Chapter 6 really speak towards being able to manage parking better in the future, improving its efficiency, as well as possibly adding some parking supply in the future also. It identifies a space where that might be done. With that, very quick walkthrough. Gina's going to take over to finish out.
And the last two chapters of the plan. Chapter 7 is infrastructure. We do have a civil engineer on the team, and it was their job to look at the build-out numbers of the specific plan, which would occur many, many, many years from now, and decide if the infrastructure and utilities are adequate. It was their determination that it is adequate with the exception of one waterline upgrade along Bogart. But again, that would happen more than 20 years out. That's with full build-out numbers of the specific plan. So they did look at wet utilities and dry utilities. And then finally, the last chapter is implementation, and the key to this chapter is that it sets forth the strategies and an outline for preparing an infrastructure financing plan, which should really be one of the first steps of implementation of the plan for the city to identify the capital and O&M costs of the specific plan and to outline the requirements for developer fair share contributions and other financing mechanisms. This chapter does recommend programs and actions, identifies lead responsible parties for those actions, and sets forth short, mid, and a long-term time frame for accomplishing the various actions and programs, and provides potential funding sources for the various improvements and programs that are recommended in the plan. So that summarizes the specific plan, and now Lloyd's going to talk briefly about the CEQA process.
I think she just walked off with a clicker. Okay. What the environmental impact report does is look at the specific plan as a project and evaluates what are the physical environmental changes that would occur because of implementation of that plan. The process started with an initial study that determined what issues needed to be addressed in the environmental impact report. There was a notice of preparation, a scoping meeting that took public input regarding the analyses that are included in that impact report. Here's the key findings of the EIR. One is that the build-out of the proposed specific plan is less than what your general plan currently allows. So the impacts are not great. You have actually prepared for the impacts of building out this specific plan. All of the impacts that would result from the specific plan can be mitigated with two exceptions. One, air quality, the other, noise during construction. The air quality issues are very typical of what occurs during construction. It's a temporary impact, but there really is no way under California regulations and the technology that exists for construction equipment to eliminate a significant impact during construction, both in terms of air quality and noise. And then, as we know in Southern California with air quality, any large-scale project is going to have a significant impact. Even with all of the mitigation measures that you would place on a project, the Air Quality Management District still has measures that they need to implement beyond what you as a city can do. That draft EIR went out for a 45-day public review period. There were 6 comment letters that came back. In the final EIR, you have responses to each of those comment letters, and included in the comments, one of the focuses was on the traffic study, and just wanted to point out there is a comprehensive traffic study that is part of the EIR. It analyzed the impacts of building out the specific plan, the land use changes, the changes in street configurations, the walkways, the roadway configurations, and all of that was determined to be less than significant, with a couple instances, and the mitigation measures are in the EIR, so that basically all of the traffic issues, and this is very rare, I get to stand up in front of a community and say, traffic will be taken care of as part of the plan and the mitigation measures included in the EIR. There are 2 documents that you have as part of the EIR, the draft EIR, which is the larger document, the final EIR, which includes the responses to comments that came on the draft EIR. Together, they comprise the final EIR, which is what you will be asked to certify as being adequate under the California Environmental Quality Act. And there also is in front of you, as part of the EIR determination, a statement of overriding considerations, which explains what I had just talked about earlier in terms of those significant unavoidable impacts. So with that, it's actually really good. This EIR was really straightforward compared to what most downtowns go through, because you actually have done a really good job in your planning process. Thanks.
All right. Go ahead. I'm going to be opening up the public hearing in a bit, but go ahead.
Actually, that is our presentation by the Arroyo Group. At this point, I'm just requesting with the Planning Commission that the City Council open the public hearing and adopt both the resolution certifying the environmental impact report, the statement of overriding considerations, and the findings of fact, and then also adopting the specific plan.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Amy. At this point, I will open up the public hearing. So anyone wishing to speak in favor of the project that was just proposed? Mike Toohey? Okay, I thought he was saying something.
He's not a
all
resident.
Right. All right. Anyone opposing?
Oh, that's right.
All right. Seeing no interest, I now declare the public hearing closed. At this point, I'll go ahead and move.
Mayor,
Councilman, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, if I could just ask, this document is about 6 inches thick. If we could hold this over for until, I guess, the second meeting of December, okay, to have time to review it, and so that I could put some more comments into it, and then we could look at it at that point.
All right, that's fine. I don't have an issue with that. I'll go. Is that a motion?
That's a motion.
I'll go ahead and second. Are there any objections? See none, so move.
Mayor, I do want to just
yes,
compliment the Arroyo Group for an excellent presentation and for being so thorough in the document. I did have a question on the design standards, and I know you mentioned like the undulation and the roofing, but what about building materials? Because what I've seen in our downtown area has been a lot of like buildings, and it almost looks like cinder block buildings with like stucco as an exterior. So what building materials and also windows, if possible, were considered in the design standards?
The plan does have some broad standards on building materials, and it's mostly talking about building materials that are matching, that are compatible with surrounding environments, and then it refers back to your citywide design guidelines. So it doesn't specifically call out certain building materials that you must have in the downtown. Mm-hmm. And windows, I don't think this plan actually gets too specific on windows, other than the requirement to have a certain percentage of your building frontage be open windows, but in terms of the materials for windows, it doesn't get to that level of specificity.
Okay, thank you. And I also would assume that the landscape designers for the medium project are in communication with the Arroyo Group, Dan or Shannon, since they are looking at some of the...
Yeah, this is conceptual on what the Arroyo Group has developed, and whereas the landscape for the median is very specific.
Yeah, right. And I understand that in the downtown area, the conceptual kind of proposals take into consideration the types of like plantings along medians and things like that. So I was just curious to know if there was any communication there.
No, I will provide the landscape designers with a copy of the specific plan, though, to make sure that we're at least compatible with.
Yeah. That would be great. And Amy, I would like to, I know that we are embarking on the citywide design guidelines, I believe. I know we had been a few months ago. So I think that, the building materials and, some of those aesthetics, like the windows, the type of windows and so forth, I think that that's important because, we're looking to improve the older buildings, and then we have newer buildings that are coming in that just don't look aesthetically pleasing. And so I just really want us to be thoughtful about, how we move forward with the specific plan and also with those design guidelines. Thank you.
I'd like to say...
yes, go ahead.
I think that it's up to us as the council and also the planning commission to be a little more vigilant when designs come forward for new buildings. So I would like to see that in the future, that we take more responsibility and pay very close attention to what's presented to us and as well to the planning commission before we okay something. So I think that will answer a lot of the questions about the aesthetics and about building materials and windows. I know that we have specific codes as well that we have to follow for awnings and signage and all that as well. But I just want to thank the Arroyo Group, and you've been really great in all the presentations and meeting with the community and everything that you've done. Amy and staff as well, thank you so very much. This is I've been with this since the beginning of it, so thank you very, very much. Very thorough and really enjoyed reading all the material. Thank you.
Mayor, if I just may also, I want to thank the Arroyo Group. You guys did a great job working with the community. I was there at all the workshops, and I saw how you handled the community and try to get everybody to buy in. All the ideas are really great. I think they're going to be very supportive of the vision that we have as a city council, and I think it'll help accomplish that. So I want to thank all of you, and Amy Harbour did a great job getting this through, because I know this is your baby, so did a good job. All right, so thank all of you again. You did a wonderful job, and we'll continue working with you through this process. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much as well.
Mayor?
Yes, Councilmember Montes.
I'd like to just, not to belabor the point, but since, Mayor Pro Tem Cruz Baca, believes that we should pay more attention to, proposals when they come before us, I would like to set parameters. And I think that, it's not unusual for cities to do that as far as, again, design guidelines. And some cities go as far as to adopt specific plans that encourage a certain type of architecture. And so, like, for example, if you go to Santa Barbara, you'll see the Spanish style, and it's very specific as to what kind of buildings are allowed. And so I think that it's okay for us to be very thoughtful and to, start to think about those design guidelines that are compatible with our community and what we want to see moving forward. And so I do applaud, the Arroyo Group. I applaud Amy and the planning department. But once again, I do think that there is a place for looking at those design guidelines and just making sure that it's compatible, moving forward. And it's not unusual. Many cities embark on this and have implemented these types of plans. So thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So at this point, we're going to go to one more last section, which is reports of officers, item number 9, which is review of current applications and considerations of appointments of student members of the Recreation and Community Services. I just want to say, is Marlene Gutierrez here? Not here? How about?
She is. She's right there.
Oh, Madeline, excuse me, Gutierrez, sorry about that. And also Anthony? Okay. What I want to do is go ahead and motion, because I know that you guys have been coming back and forth, back and forth. So Madeline has an excellent GPA, so that's awesome. Could you stand up? Where is she?
Right there in the back.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. And also Anthony as well, you're from North Park? Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and move a motion to appoint you to commission. It's been seconded by Councilmember Susan Rubio. Any objections? See none, so move. So first meeting in December, come up here. We're going to swear you in, okay? Thank you very much.
Mayor, I would just like to say congratulations to these young people, but
Yes.
the reason that I knew who they were because they have been coming
I know.
to every
Thank you.
meeting that we've postponed. That to me, I was going to say anyway, who are
Okay.
the two
Right.
the two that are here that have been here,
Thank you.
and I think that we owe them the benefit of the doubt.
Absolutely.
For having been here and their diligence to be here.
Thank you.
So thank you so very much. This shows that you really want this position. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mayor,
Yes.
I also want to thank you for accepting this responsibility that you have representing your school here on the city council, and we'll be hopefully working closer with all of you. And I think it's great that you took this on. So we'll see you next week over here. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, at this point, we're going to go into the finance. Yeah, the finance.
Mayor, before everyone kind of walks out, and I know the majority of the people left, and so I apologize for not saying it sooner, but we definitely want to advertise our annual tree lighting ceremony, which is coming up on
December 3rd.
Thursday, December 3rd at 6 p.m. at the Esther Snyder Community Center. So please join us. And we also have Breakfast with Santa, which is December 5th at 8 a.m. from 8 to 11. So anyone that's interested, please join us. We would love to see you there. Thank you, Mayor.
And we could also use some volunteers because last year I was actually serving breakfast because we were short volunteers. So bring your apron, and we very much appreciate any help for the Santa's breakfast.
All right, thank you very much. At this point, I'd like to open up the Housing Authority, and we have the consent calendar, which is the Treasury report. I'll move to approve. Hello?
Second. I'll second.
Okay. All right, second. Any objections? Seen none, so move. This point, I'd like to move for adjournment of the actual...
Mayor, I just have a...
No, we open a concurrent. We open a concurrent. Yes, go ahead.
Mayor, I just want to ask if staff could advertise also for our swearing-in ceremony, which I think is December 2nd.
Yes, it is.
And put that out in the public. Also, for all the events that we have for Christmas, make sure that we publicize through all the, all the faith-based churches, all the nonprofits, our assembly and state senate, Congress people, make sure that they are all aware so everybody could try to attend. But I'd like to ask the city clerk, what's the status on the election? Are we
the
done
final
counting?
canvass will be closed, and we will receive notification from LA County on November 23rd. So on November 23rd, we will have the final count.
Okay.
All righty. Okay, so at this point, I'd like to move for adjournment of the Housing Authority. That's my motion.
Second.
Any objections? Seen none, so move. At this point, I'd like to open up the Finance Authority. We have consent calendars, Treasury report, and I'll move for approval. Hello? Second. Any objections? Seen none, so move. At this point, I'd like to move for adjournment of the Finance Authority. Any objections? Seen none, so move. At this point, good evening and viva Baldwin Park. Mark, do you have a minute, please? You know what? We shouldn't print this whole thing again, so let's all keep it.
In his memory.
That's just too big.
Mayor.
Mark, how do I get rid of this?
Mayor Lozano. Robert, he never adjourned.
Yeah, she seconded. I think she seconded.
We didn't hear it.
Mayor Pro Tem Cruz Baca, did you second the adjournment of the first meeting? Yes, right? He adjourned and she seconded.
Oh, can we say that it was closing in his memory? I guess.